and receives feedback from the cortex. It also regulates consciousness, arousal, and sleep states, and it serves as the area of sensory intelligence. Then the hypothalamus, it controls the endocrine system by sending signals to the pituitary gland. It is also the body's thermostat, makes sure key function like food and water intake, energy expenditure, and body temperature are kept at the appropriate levels. It also regulates circadian rhythms, sometimes called sleep cycles, and influences the endocrine, partially the pituitary gland, in secreting hormones in response to different emotions, stress, and rewarding feelings. Then we have the cerebellum. The coordination of voluntary muscle movements maintains body balance and aspects of motor learning, especially involving the hands and the feet. It also comes from a Latin word for little brain. They control balance and aids in coordinating movements and learning new motor tasks, and damage to the cerebellum can cause inability to stand up. As for the brainstem, it consists of the midbrain, medulla oblongata, and the pons. The motor and the sensory neurons extend through the brainstem, allowing for the relay of signals between the brain and the spinal cord. The pons serves as the bridge of the midbrain, responsible for sleep regulation. It controls alertness, arousal, breathing, blood pressure, digestion, heart rate, swallowing, walking, and sensory and motor information integration. The medulla oblongata, responsible for maintaining an upright position and regulating breathing. And this is the spinal cord. It is a large rope-like segment of nerve tissue extending from the medulla oblongata to the vertebral column. It serves as a connector mechanism for spinal reflex and connecting link between the PNS and the brain. Reflexes are unconscious movement from the sensory to the spine and back to the motor neuron. It is divided into parts: the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. For the cervical, we have C1 to C8. For the thoracic, we have T1 to T12, lumbar L1 to L5, and sacral from S1 to S5. The spinal cord injuries can cause paralysis, depending on the location of the injury. Spinal cord injuries are also notoriously difficult to treat because spinal nerves do not regenerate. And we're done with the CNS, or the central nervous system. Now we're down to the second division, which is the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system carries signals within the central nervous system. It consists of 12 pairs of motor and sensory cranial nerves from the brain and 31 pairs of motor and sensory nerves from the spinal cord. It connects from the CNS and the rest of the body. CNS is the power plant of the nervous system that creates the signals that control the functions of the body, while the PNS are like the wires that go to individual houses. Without those wires, the signals produced by the CNS could not control the body, and the CNS would not be able to receive sensory information from the body either. So what does the peripheral nervous system do? So it connects the central nervous system to the organs, limbs, and skin. It carries sensory and motor information to and from the central nervous system. It also allows the brain and spinal cord to receive and send information to other areas of the body, and it regulates involuntary body functions like heartbeat and breathing. Many of the nerves in the PNS are under the direct control of the conscious mind. For example, you want your leg to move. A message from your brain travels to your spinal cord, goes through a peripheral nerve, and then to your leg. While peripheral nervous system and central nervous system are the two major divisions of the nervous system, the peripheral has its own two divisions too. These are the autonomic nervous system, which is the involuntary, and the somatic nervous system, or the voluntary. So the autonomic nervous system controls involuntary activities such as breathing, urination, heartbeat, digestion, and salivation. It also governs most of the body's homeostatic mechanism by the sympathetic nervous system, or the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest or digest. While the somatic nervous system, it transmits sensory information from the skin, muscles, and sensory organs to the CNS and send motor commands from the CNS to the. So we mentioned the sympathetic nervous system, or the fight or flight response that occurs when one encounters a dangerous situation. It also dominates in times of stress, and it initiates the fight or flight reaction by increasing blood flow in areas that are most likely to be used during an emergency. It increased blood pressure of muscles, heartbeat, and breathing. It also decreases blood flow to the kidney and digestive tract. For the parasympathetic, after a certain emergency when the body uses its sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system simulates the opposite reaction to bring the individual back to the normal state. This resets organ function after the sympathetic nervous system is activated. So here are the differences of the two. When you are frightened, the nerves leading to organs, such as the lungs and heart, are activated. The sympathetic division increases the blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing rate. Such increase may be necessary if extra energy and strength are needed to deal with the stressful situation. But when the situation is over, the parasympathetic nerves bring the blood pressure, breathing rate, and heart rate back to normal. So here are the differences of what the two does with the organs. So the eyes, the parasympathetic is the constrict pupil, while the sympathetic is the one that dilate pupil. The heart, we have lungs, stomach, liver, kidneys, intestines, and bladder. So they're opposite from each other. The parasympathetic is the normal state, while the sympathetic is the fight or flight state. And then we have the reflex. So a reflex is an involuntary and automatic response to a stimulus applied to the periphery and transferred to the CNS. Reflexes allow a person to react to stimuli more quickly than a possible if conscious thought is involved. So we have here the knee-jerk reflex and the withdrawal reflex. The simplest reflex is the stretch reflex. A stretch reflex occurs when muscles contract in response to a stretching force applied to them. So the knee-jerk reflex, or the patellar reflex, is a classic example of the stretch reflex involving the spinal cord. An example of the knee-jerk reflex is when a doctor taps your patellar tendon below your kneecap, causing your lower leg to kick forward automatically. So this happens because the sudden stretch of the muscle sends a quick signal to the spinal cord, which immediately sends motor response back to the muscle, making your leg extend without you thinking. And then the withdrawal reflex. The function of the withdrawal reflex, or the flexor reflex, is to remove a limb or another body part from a pain stimulus. So one of these example is when you accidentally touch something hot and quickly pull your hand away before you even realize it. So the pain receptors sends a rapid signal to the spinal cord, which instantly tells your muscle to move, protecting you from further injury. So both the knee-jerk reflex and withdrawal reflex are fast. There are automatic spinal reflexes. They happen without thinking because the spinal cord sends an immediate response to protect the body. But here are some differences. The knee-jerk reflex is a stretch reflex that makes the leg kick when the tendon is tapped to maintain posture, while the withdrawal reflex is pain reflex that pulls your body away from something harmful like the heat or the sharp objects. And now that we are done with the nervous system, we broke it down. Let us do the checkup or a short checkup test. Question number 1. It is a small gap in between the axons of the first neuron and the dendrites of the connecting neuron. So we have A, neurotransmitter, B, node of Ranvier, C, synapse, and D, reflex. So the correct answer is synapse, because it is a place where two neurons meet, right? Even though they don't touch the synapse, they include the tiny gaps within them where the messages are passed. So this small space allows chemicals to move from one neuron axon to the next neuron dendrites, helping signals continue. Next question is, sensory neurons are also called as A, tangible neurons, B, stimulus, C, afferent neuron, and D, afferent neuron. So the correct answer is D, afferent neuron, because they carry information toward the brain and spinal cord. So they pick up signals like tough, pain, or temperature from your body and send those message inward so your brain can understand what's happening. Afferent simply means moving toward the central nervous system. Next, the next, the next question is, it is an excitatory neurotransmitter in CNS and PNS that cause Alzheimer's disease when deficient. So A, GABA, B, acetylcholine, and C, epinephrine, and D, dopamine. So the correct answer is B, acetylcholine. It is the neurotransmitter that helps with memory, right? So learning and muscle control too. When the brain doesn't have enough of this, the nerve cells can't communicate well, which is linked to the Alzheimer's disease. That's why the correct answer is the acetylcholine. Then number 4, identify the part of the neuron below. So this one, it is the cell body that the main part of a neuron. The main part of the neuron. So it's a cell body, also known as soma. All right. The next question, still identify the part of the neuron below. So that one is the dendrites. It is the short branch-like extensions that act as the neuron's receivers. Next question, still identify the part of the neuron. That one is long cable-like extensions that sends messages away from the cell body. So that is the axon. And last question, identify the part of the neuron below. That one is the tiny gaps between the myelin sheath segments along the axon. It's called node of the Ranvier. So that's the end of my discussion, guys. I hope you understand something, and thank you.